your opening statement, your comments of your work to focus on Russia as an invasion of Ukraine and an occupation, and your work on legal defensive arms. That would include the javelins, would it not, Ambassador Volker?
Yes, that's right.
And that made a big difference with Ukraine, did it not?
A very big difference.
Mr. Morrison, would you speak to, tell us about your military service?
Mr. Turner, I'm a U.S. Naval Reserve officer. I'm an intelligence officer.
And where did you go to law school?
George Washington University.
Now, gentlemen, there's been a lot of talk about a lot of people, and we're going to have to pick up the pace here because these are like short periods of time that we have now for this portions of questions. With each other and with other people, and all had a whole bunch of hearsay. But I can assure you this boils down to just one thing. This is an impeachment inquiry concerning the President of the United States. So the only thing that matters, besides all these people talking to each other and all their feelings and all of their thoughts and understandings, it really only comes down to what did the President of the United States intend, and what did he say, and what did the Ukrainians understand or hear? Ambassador Volker, you're one of the first people that we've had in these open public testimony that's had conversations with both. So I get to ask you, you had a meeting with the President of the United States, and you believe that the policy issues that he raised concerning Ukraine were valid, correct?
Yes.
Did the President of the United States ever say to you that he was not going to allow aid for the United States to go to the Ukraine unless there were investigations into Burisma, the Bidens, or the 2016 elections?
No, he did not.
Did the Ukrainians ever tell you that they understood that they would not get a meeting with the President of the United States, a phone call with the President of the United States, military aid, or foreign aid from the United States unless they undertook investigations of Burisma, the Bidens, or the 2016 elections?
No, they did not.
You know, pretty much, Ambassador Volker, you just took apart their entire case. I mean, if the President of the United States does not believe or intend it, and the Ukrainians don't understand it, and you're the only one who actually stands in between them. Now, I ask you, Ambassador Volker, you know, the Three Amigo thing or whatever that they're trying to disparage you with, you're not part of an irregular channel, right, Ambassador Volker? Aren't you the official channel?
That is correct.
Explain that. Explain how you're the official channel and not an irregular channel.
So I was appointed by the Secretary of State, Secretary Tillerson, in July of 2017 to be the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations. That's a role that's different from Assistant Secretary of State or different from Ambassador in Ukraine. That role is particularly focused on the diplomatic activities surrounding the efforts to reverse Russia's invasion and occupation of Ukraine. It is Minsk Agreement implementation. It is the Normandy process with France and Germany. It is support from NATO. It is support for sanctions from the European Union. It's the OSCE and the monitoring missions. It is the efforts of individual allies like Poland, like the UK, like Canada that are supporting Ukraine. It is work at a senior level in the interagency with Secretary of Defense.
Great description. I'm going to cut you off there. Ambassador Volker, you were also one of the few people who had actually spoken to Giuliani, the so-called irregular channel. Again, all these other people had feelings and understandings about what Giuliani was doing. Did Giuliani ever tell you that United States aid or a meeting with the President of the United States would not occur for the Ukrainians until they agreed to an investigation of Burisma, the Bidens, of the 2016 election?
Yeah, everything I heard from Giuliani, I took to be his opinion.
Excellent. So I would assume then that the Ukrainians never told you that Giuliani had told them that in order to get a meeting with the President, a phone call with the President, military aid or foreign aid from the United States, they would have to do these investigations?
No.
Great. Okay. Mr. Morrison, you testified that you spoke to Ambassador Sondland, and he told you of a conversation that he had with the President of the United States. On page 128 of his testimony, he relates the content of a conversation that he had with the President, and he was asked about it. It's the only one he relates, and he said, he was asked whether or not there was a quid pro quo. He said, I didn't frame the question basically to the President that way as a link. I did not frame the question that way. I asked the open-ended question, what do you want? This is Mr. Sondland in his testimony asking this question to the President of the United States. And this is what he reports at the President of the United States. He said, I want nothing. I don't want to give them anything. I don't want anything from them. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. That's what he kept repeating, no quid pro quo, over and over again. Mr. Morrison, do you have any reason to believe that Mr. Sondland is not telling the truth as the content of his conversation with the President of the United States?
No, Congressman.
Now, do either of you have any information or evidence that anyone who has testified before this committee, either in the secret dungeon testimonies that have been released or in these open testimonies, has perjured themselves or has lied to this committee?
I have no reason to think that.
Mr. Morrison?
No, sir.
Mr. Morrison, Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman reported to you, is that correct?
He did, sir.
Now, you have a legal background. He said that he listened to the phone call which you said you saw nothing that had occurred illegally. And he said that he believed the President of the United States demanded to President Zelensky that these investigations move forward. Do you believe, because he only was telling us his opinion, do you believe in your opinion that the President of the United States demanded that President Zelensky undertake these investigations?
No, sir.
To both of you. The Ukraine is an aspirant to the EU. Ambassador Sondland is the ambassador to the EU. Is the Ukraine in the ambassador's portfolio? Ambassador Volker?
Yes, also because the EU sanctions on Ukraine are incredibly important.
Mr. Morrison?
I agree, sir.
I yield back.